Senate plan. But I want to talk about the wildlife, first of all. Tell me what your thoughts on this one happens to be, and what's the status of it now?
Well, look, here's the bottom line. The Conservation Trust Fund has passed the House 117-4. It's a great bill. We've been on it for over a year now. We've been talking about it for over a year now. It's in the Senate now. Mm-hmm. What passed the Senate was essentially the same version as they had last year, which was what I refer to as a toothless bill. I think here's what I'm hearing, and I hope that I'm right. I think it's important for all the leaders to come together, because the reality is we need a dedicated fund for conservation. I'm a former newspaper publisher. You know that. I've dealt with a lot of important issues. In the aftermath of Katrina, there were some important issues, certainly more important than this. But I've never seen a bill that had more credibility, more importance for the state from a conservation point of view than what we're looking at here. And I believe that, there are different points of view, but at the end of the day, I do believe our leaders can come together and really put together something that is going to be the kind of generational bill that allows us to focus on wildlife conservation, wildlife habitat creation in ways that we've never done before. Because as you know from your other conversations, that we're leaving millions and millions of dollars of federal funds on the table because we don't have a dedicated fund in this state, and we just got to get it done. And I think that when you hear the argument and if you believe in conservation, you believe in Mississippi as the capital of the outdoors for the United States, this is one you have to support. And we can wrangle about some of the details, but at the end of the day, I think our leaders will come together, fund it, and move us forward. It may not be the perfect bill, but I think what will come out of this effort will be one that we can all live with.
What lots has to be, they have to negotiate a lot of stuff for it to meet the deadline for tonight.
They do, Paul. Of course, there's been a lot of debate about private land, but this notion of private land was settled a long time ago, thanks to Thad Cochran and his leadership of the Farm Bill. And if you look at the amount of money that's available on the federal level, billions of dollars, the majority of that's actually in the Farm Bill. So we have to recognize that if we want to get matching funds, we have to be able to, we have to understand that it's going to be in the Farm Bill, and that involves private land. There's this concern that's about creating duck holes on private property or private landowners, rich landowners. I mean, to sell it like that, that's just wrong, because the majority of land in Mississippi are owned by people who are not rich. In fact, they may be land rich and cash poor. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to do the kind of conservation and wildlife habitat creation if we don't get farmers involved in it. So that's been a concern. Getting non-governmental organizations involved has been a concern. And creating a dedicated funding source has been a concern. But I think we can come together on those issues. I really do.
Well, here's the thing I don't understand is it's being held up for the most part, from my understanding, is about the lieutenant governor has a problem with that private public. And the questions I've asked him is what is different on this particular case than some of the other private public relationships that the state has gone into. Some with, I think, with his approval. And I agree with you. If you're trying to, let's say, duck hunting, and I know there are a lot of people who are not members of Ducks Unlimited or the NRA or whatever, and they're just looking for a place to hunt. Or fish. We have more fishing, but hunting's a dying sport out there. And we need more wildlife management. We need more things such as that. But I guess the point I'm making is we have checks and balances on this through the board, do we not?
Of course we do. And look, there may be concerns about giving the money to rich private landowners. So there's the thought to indoctrinate some sort of a formula that will make sure that doesn't happen. I mean, we should address that and take it off the table. But when you consider between 80 and 90% of Mississippi is private land, we can't be serious about conservation if we don't include private land. This is a debate that's already been had at the federal level, and all our competing states who have in the Southeast, we're one of two, as you know, that don't have such a dedicated fund. They've already answered this, and they're unplugging money from the Farm Bill left and right, and we're being left in the dark, and we've got to solve that.
My understanding is that the Senate puts $55 million in parks to address the park situation as far as through the ARPA funds. Is that part of the Senate bill? Because I don't see where's the funding? Where's the funding?
Yeah, I
for
think there's
this?
a big question marks. A big question mark. And I thank God that Briggs Hobson is chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate. He's been on my show, Coast View. You know him well. He's a smart guy. He's surrounded by incredible habitat that could really benefit from this bill. I think he understands that. And so I thank God that someone like him is in that position, and he'll make sure it gets funded. But I've listened carefully to your conversation with the Lieutenant Governor last week. And listen, Delbert is very focused on fixing the park system. You can see he's very passionate about that. I mean, he's deeply, deeply engaged, and it's got to be done. Okay, so no one's saying that doesn't need to be done. You have ARCA funds, I think $55 million you just mentioned, that can go toward that. But let's not confuse fixing parks with conservation efforts that are going to help those who enjoy the outdoors in fundamental ways. We can do both. And I hope that the Lieutenant Governor comes to a place in his head and his soul and his heart where he says we have to do both. We can't wait on this conservation fund until we fix parks. We have to do both, and we have the money to do both. So let's get them both done.
Would you explain, and I have numerous times, it would be good to hear from this audience here from a different perspective, exactly how that diversion works as far as no additional cost to the taxpayers when we come back?
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Ricky Mathews, who, by the way, is a SuperTalk host and also Coast View and SuperTalk Outdoors, which you enjoy that show, don't you? I think you love that show. It was tailor-made for you, by the way. We'll get back with Ricky Mathews and more when we come back. This afternoon, a busy, busy day with a lot of different bills that will become extinct if something doesn't happen. Ricky Mathews is my guest. Ricky, kind of explain again how this diversion works, because as you well know, the audience turns over. So for folks who don't understand the concept or the funding mechanism for this, it's all yours, sir.
Okay, so the House version of the bill uses what is called a diversion, which essentially what they'll be doing is taking existing sales tax on sporting goods and diverting a portion of that over to this fund. And it would escalate to the third year, where it would be $15 million a year from that point forward. The focus on diversion is it's been sort of a bit of a stumbling block for the Senate, and I get it, because when you divert a certain amount of money, then they no longer have the ability to allocate that to some other source. I get that, but what the House's intentions are is to create a dedicated funding source. So, at the notion around a diversion, if it's such a stumbling block that we can't get the bill passed, then what I would strongly recommend is certainly going the appropriation route, but then building into the bill multiple years. So it's not just a one-year deal. And why that's important is a lot of the matching funds that we're going to get, a lot of the projects that we would fund would be multi-year. And if you're just sort of one and done, and then you got to wait till next year to get an appropriation and then wait till the next year, it's hard to commit to the kind of projects that we need to do in Mississippi that allow us to get multi-year matching funds. So that's what the intention was. There are ways around it. If the notion of diversion is a problem, then just build in some sort of multi-year commitment or appropriations in the bill. I think they can get over that one.
Much like the back-to-school holiday, tax-free holiday, this is kind of the same thing. There will be a list of everything that qualifies when you bought it, whether it be a life jacket, a gun, anything dealing with, I'm not sure, a tent, but anything that is on that list that would mandate the taxes paid on that, some of the taxes paid on that would go back into that fund. But even that fund is capped. It's not an infinite. I mean, infinite. It goes back to what, $20 million? I think it is. Yeah. But look, here's the point though. I think that the key important issues is that we have to say all land, maybe build a formula provision in that it takes out rich landowners so they can't take advantage of it. We need to include non-governmental organizations so that, I'm thinking of the Nature Conservancy and Ducks Unlimited and other organizations like that
they can go and look around the U.S. at some of the most innovative programs being done, and they're aware of those and bring them back to Mississippi. One of the things that Michael Watson did is he brought together non-governmental and governmental and private sector people all in one room who are interested in conservation. And it was overwhelmingly positive as it related to they need more money. They need to have support of the legislature. We need to have a multifaceted approach to conservation, and all parties, all stakeholders have to be involved. I think non-governmental's got to be there, and we just have to be very committed to funding this effort. If we don't put money in the bill, we need to put money in the bill quickly, and hopefully it's a multi-year scenario. Then we can get started, and we can stop leaving tens of millions of dollars on the table every single year that other states are getting from the federal government to help with conservation in Mississippi.
I think we might have missed the boat a little bit on this one, too, because we keep talking about Ducks Unlimited or duck hunting in that, but there's so many other things. Parks, number one, as we well know, we all talk about it. But, today more than ever, certainly with millennials, bike trails, camping sites, other different things inside and outside the parks, and other ways for us to utilize the tremendous assets that we have. And we forget about that. Why couldn't we put in that bill, come together with some priority list? Okay, if that's the situation, just put a priority list as far as the grants that are available or issued out.
Well, they're going to create a board that's going to oversee this. Hopefully, it's not like the Coast Restoration Fund where people are able to go around the local board and do politics with the BP money. That doesn't work. Yeah. So hopefully they'll improve upon the system that's in place down here on the coast now. But I agree with you. I think I use Ducks Unlimited as just an example of a non-governmental organization that's got a lot of experience in creating wildlife habitat. But there are so many of them. There's a countless list of these organizations that are doing great work. The example that I use would be reefs, building reefs in coastal Mississippi, off our shore. I mean, one of the, you build a reef and the fish come. There's so many other, I think about the access to public land. We've done a great job in Mississippi of creating, wildlife management areas. Some of the best in the world are right here in Mississippi, but there's access issues. We don't need to go off and buy more land and take that land off the tax roll. What we need to do is potentially buy some right-of-ways that give people better access to public hunting. There's so many applications. And at the end of the day, you want everyone to be involved in this so that you have innovative projects. You want it to be competitive. You want people to go out and find the cutting edge so that Mississippi can lead in this area again and not follow the other states.
I have someone in the family who lives in Arkansas, and I'm not sure how close it is to Startgard, but took over the family farm and transferred some of the rice farming to one of the best duck hunting locations in America. He's booked for 15 years with the cabins and everything else, and people fly into that. For people think about private, when a landowner might want to convert this to letting the public come in on a yearly basis or whatever, that's innovative. That's thinking. That gives people who had not had a chance. So those are the things that the board needs to consider. And if they don't consider that, then all of a sudden we find out 5 years from now it's being used by the country club set, nobody else, then come back and address that. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. And you mentioned Arkansas. Arkansas has $65 million in their trust fund. And Florida has $100 million in theirs. And Texas has $200 million in theirs. And Georgia, the example we use constantly, is they have $20 million in theirs, but they leverage it to nearly $100 million using the federal grants. But we're talking about big money here, Paul. This on an annual basis. We're over the course of 10 years, we're talking about $500 million that we're missing out on.
I will say this: we are a transition. People move more now than they've ever moved before. I think that's gone down a little bit in the last few years, but still, people change, move from town to town, and I experienced this many years ago from hunting clubs two hunting clubs that we had, and then you move here and you're relegated to spend an unbelievable amount of money to join a new hunting club, or you go to a public hunting club, and sometimes people are just not used to that. We need more areas for the public and more assets for the public. And if this bill doesn't achieve that in the House or Senate, they need to come together on this. I found it amazing, and I heard from John Younger yesterday, who wanted to sell that Black Prairie wildlife management and was going to open public hearings. And I thought, what a odd time to do that, to tell them you wanted to take a WMF and stick it over to private entity. But I think that's off the table. So your thoughts?
Yeah. Hey, well, look, here's the last thing I want to say about this. I remember
Sure.
I said that this is one of the most, and you know this, one of the most consequential legislative sessions in a long, long time because of the money and the issues that are in front of them. But I remember Haley Barbour after Katrina, he said to the legislature in the special session, "What are our kids and our kids going to say about us? Did we get the recovery right?" And I feel that way about this conservation fund. What will our kids and our kids' kids say of us? Did we get this? Let's don't mess this up. Let's not fail them another year. Let's get this done this year. I think we can get it done, Paul.
I would agree with you, and again, I think a lot of people in the state who frequent either state parks or WMA say that those are two of the top priorities as far as being underfunded. So if this is a way for us to bring him up to world-class status, this would be one of the ways. But by tomorrow at this time, we will know whether it lives or dies, along with some other things. Who's on with the next show? With you?
Let's see. You know what? I have to go double check. Ashley Edwards is going to be joining me for sure. Hey, one last thing. I just want to say the Chairman Neil Whaley's working real hard. I talked to him week before last in the Senate. He's doing his effort. Bill Kincaid has been incredibly focused. And we need Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann to get on board. I think he will, and we can get this done. So thank you for enabling me to share my passion for this.
Thank you for